Ash, if you call yourself a Star Trek fan, you've watched these 10 episodes, right? Whether you're a devoted Trekkie who's watched every frame of every series or a newer fan trying to find your place among the stars, there are a few episodes that are practically required viewing. These aren't just fan favorites or critical darlings, they represent the heart of Star Trek, its ideals, storytelling brilliance, and emotional resonance. If you haven't watched these 10 episodes, you might need to recalibrate your tricorder and boldly go back to the beginning. 1. The City on the Edge of Forever, the original series, Season 1, Episode 28. No list of essential Star Trek episodes is complete without this time travel masterpiece. Written by Harlan Ellison and controversially rewritten by others, this is Star Trek at its most emotionally devastating and ethically challenging. Kirk must let the woman he loves die to preserve the timeline, a moral conundrum wrapped in science fiction. If you haven't experienced Edith Keeler in The Guardian of Forever, are you even a Trek fan? Why it's essential. It's the gold standard of TOS storytelling, time travel, romance, sacrifice, and the heavy weight of responsibility. 2. The Best of Both Worlds, Parts I and II, The Next Generation, Seasons 3 to 4. When TNG dropped this two-part bombshell, it changed everything. The Borg are terrifying. Picard becomes Locutus. Riker finally steps up as a commanding officer. The cliffhanger of Part I is still one of TV's most infamous. The resolution in Part 2 is just as memorable, with Picard's trauma lingering long after the battle. Why it's essential, this two-parter made TNG must-watch television and cemented the Borg as Star Trek's most chilling villains. 3. In the Pale Moonlight, Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Episode 19, no episode challenges Star Trek's utopian ideals more than this one. Captain Sisko lies, forges documents, and indirectly causes a murder, all to bring the Romulans into the Dominion War. It's dark. It's murky. It's unforgettable. And Sisko's final line, "I can live with it," echoes through Star Trek canon as a moral earthquake. Why it's essential. It's the most brutally honest examination of ethics and war that Trek has ever dared attempt. 4. The Inner Light, The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 25. In 45 minutes, Captain Picard lives an entire lifetime as Kamen, a man from a dying civilization. The probe that initiates this experience is essentially a time capsule of memories. The haunting melody he learns on the Rusican flute becomes a recurring theme in his life and the show. Why it's essential. It's a poignant reminder of the fragility of life and the power of memory. This episode will make you cry and think. 5. Balance of Terror, the original series, Season 1, Episode 14. This is classic space combat drama, Star Trek's take on submarine warfare. It also marks the first appearance of the Romulans. But what makes it truly great is its examination of prejudice, honor, and duty, especially between Kirk and the unnamed Romulan commander who is just as noble. Why it's essential, it set the tone for tactical engagements in Trek and proved that even enemies can be sympathetic and complex. 6. Duet, Deep Space Nine, Season 1, Episode 19. If you thought DS9 was just another spin-off, this episode proves otherwise. Kira interrogates a Cardassian war criminal, or so she believes. What follows is a heartbreaking examination of guilt, atonement, and the legacy of genocide. It's raw and intimate, a character drama that rivals anything on prestige TV. Why it's essential. It's Star Trek stripped down to dialogue and morality, and it hits like a phaser on overload. 7. Year of Hell, Parts I and II, Voyager, Season 4, Episodes 8 to 9. What if Voyager embraced serialized, gritty storytelling before DS9 made it cool? That's what Year of Hell offers, a two-part saga where Janeway and her crew are pushed to the breaking point by a time-manipulating villain. This is Voyager at its darkest and most daring. Why it's essential. It's a story about survival, sacrifice, and leadership under unimaginable pressure. Janeway cements her legacy here. 8. Scorpion, Part I and II, Voyager, Seasons 3 to 4. What happens when the Borg are the lesser threat? These episodes introduce species 8472, an even deadlier force. But the real tension lies in Janeway's decision to ally with the Borg to survive. Oh, and 7 of 9 arrives, one of Trek's most iconic characters. Why it's essential, strategic alliances, impossible enemies, and moral compromises, it's everything Trek does best, turned up to warp 10. 9. Mirror, Mirror the original series, Season 2, Episode 4. Before alternate universes were mainstream sci-fi, Star Trek gave us the Mirror universe. Evil Spock with a goatee. Power-hungry Kirk. This is campy, philosophical fun at its best, and it birthed a whole sub-franchise within Trek. DS9, Enterprise, and Discovery would all revisit the Mirror universe. Why it's essential, it's iconic, wildly entertaining, and it introduced the most enduring alternate reality in Trek history. 10. Far Beyond the Stars, Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Episode 13. Set in 1950s America, this episode isn't science fiction in the traditional sense, and that's exactly the point. Captain Sisko lives a life as Benny Russell, a sci-fi writer whose story about a black man commanding a starship is deemed too controversial. It's an unflinching look at racism, hope, and the power of storytelling. Why it's essential, it's one of the most powerful statements Star Trek has ever made on race, identity, and imagination. Honorable mentions because we couldn't help ourselves. The measure of a man TNG is data, property, or a person. Classic courtroom Trek. All good things. TNG, the perfect series finale that ties the entire show together. Timeless Voyager, a heartbreaking glimpse at failure and redemption. Carbon Creek, Enterprise of Vulcans in 1950s Pennsylvania. Surprisingly touching. Calypso, short tracks, a beautiful, minimalist love story with massive implications for Discovery. So, have you watched them all? If you call yourself a Star Trek fan, these episodes are non-negotiable. They capture everything the franchise has stood for over 6 decades. Courage, sacrifice, empathy, diversity, diplomacy, and discovery, all under the infinite stars. Some are emotionally devastating, others pulse with action, and many tackle issues we still struggle with today. This is where Star Trek becomes more than sci-fi, it becomes mythology. So if any of these are still sitting in your watch list queue, now's the time. Engage. Live long and binge. Why it's essential, it's one of the most powerful statements Star Trek has ever made on race, identity, and imagination. Honorable mentions because we couldn't help ourselves. The measure of a man TNG is data, property, or a person. Classic courtroom Trek. All good things. TNG, the perfect series finale that ties the entire show together. Timeless Voyager, a heartbreaking glimpse at failure and redemption. Carbon Creek, Enterprise of Vulcans in 1950s Pennsylvania. Surprisingly touching. Calypso, short treks, a beautiful, minimalist love story with massive implications for Discovery. So, have you watched them all? If you call yourself a Star Trek fan, these episodes are non-negotiable. They capture everything the franchise has stood for over 6 decades. Courage, sacrifice, empathy, diversity, diplomacy, and discovery, all under the infinite stars. Some are emotionally devastating, others pulse with action, and many tackle issues we still struggle with today. This is where Star Trek becomes more than sci-fi, it becomes mythology. So if any of these are still sitting in your